is Kevin Marshall. I'm presenting my marketing vignette number 2 on relating market demand to customer value for the company Bungie, the video game creator and studio of Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, along with their additional DLC packs. Now, for the market, I want to just talk about Destiny is in the driver's seat when it comes to FPS sandbox games, meaning you can do anything in the world games that also an MMO style PvP, PvE, and game. There is no other game quite like this except for maybe if you go down the rabbit hole of World of Warcraft, but that is still something you can't compare to with the same type of gameplay content. Now, VR and AR are on the rise and in the conversation mix for Bungie and how they're going to develop their brand going forward. But to discuss more of the big topics that are going to help Bungie create value as far as their solutions, it's going to be their expansions and player generated input. Now, the market environment. The current market is so widely diverse that it's really hard to pinpoint, even amongst the gaming community, where they actually stand. Because you've got moms, dads, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, and everybody in between that is playing Destiny. And it is a huge game base with about 30 million different players, or guardians as we like to call them, at a given time. So it's a global game, and that's the point. It is not just based in the US, it is not just based in Europe, it is everywhere, and including other countries like Asian continent and other places like Australia too. So really describing the picture of some pieces that we have to consider with the solutions for our expansions and for player generated input. I want to actually jump right around to the customer acquisition costs. Let's just say for your marketing channel, you've got sales and marketing staff costing you about $85,000 a year. You got one of those people. Then you've got a social media campaign that's running about $800 a go, and you've got 20 of them running at a single time. And that's $16,000 that you've got to put up annually for these projects. Then you've got your pay-per-click. Let's say because it's a game, it's 25 cents pay-per-click, and you're getting 15,000 clicks at a time. Now, I'm going to put this in a quarterly perspective, not an annual in this point. Now, the total market expenses for the quarter is going to be coming around to, annually it's coming around to $104,750. $104,750. New customers acquired in a given quarter is around 25,000 players. So what that actually breaks down to is, if we look at the annual, it's about $4.20 per customer acquisition. Now, per quarter, it's actually even less. It's about $1.89 per acquisition if we're talking about the quarters again. And I want to break it down like that because Destiny has a really good idea on their expansions. However, they are doing them in a quarter-based system, is why I describe it this way. They release transactional DLCs to improve content, create more space, but they're losing out a lot on the player hype because they've gone to a subscription model. They've gone to pay to play, pay for extras, XYZs, which is fine. We are a business. We have to make money. However, we're losing out on Web3 exchangeable content. They're not investing as heavily into AI generated content for unique scenarios and sourcing of unique content and product lines. And we're not creating player space for these guys to kind of sit in the chat room for a while and just sort of like shoot the shit about what their game is today. These are some expansion things to seriously consider and include going forward, especially in those Web3 services and exchangeable content, because other games are already incorporating that sort of thing. Now, as far as the demand curve, it's there. Like, it is a straight up linear curve. However, it's starting to stagnate. And I want to say that because I preface it with their marketing strategy of subscribe and smaller pay to plays. It's a tough sell, especially when you're talking about already $100 buy-in, essentially, just to kind of get caught up in a game. And the content itself is also, why I bring up the AI point, is somewhat lacking because the darkness is always near. That's a common theme. Now, to be fair, it's why Bungie went with Destiny 2, was to sort of expand the verse and see what else was out there. However, the theme is almost always the same. But the best part about the game is that you are making the grind so fun by creating more content for yourselves, to create unique weapon platforms, to create unique armor mods, to create unique strategies, even, and just having fun with your teams in the raid parties. Now, some customer value deliveries and and lifetime values is that the value is derived is always a spectacle when it comes to the expansions. Like, it's hype. It's huge hype. We are talking about big advertisements. We're talking about big YouTube shorts. We're getting game influencers involved just to like release little pieces about what's coming up next. But a problem is that lifetime value. We can create that, oh, here's another thing to grind out for, but again, there's no Web3 service to, hey, I earned it and I want to sell it. And you're not creating that inherent customer value that these players can make for themselves within the game. The content's always going to be generated by Bungie. However, that's the point of trying to create a more interactive space. As far as player generated input, you got to have player hype. People are universally in the Destiny space super great when it comes to player to player interactions, player to clan interactions, clan to clan interactions. People want to be involved in the community space because, again, talking about 30 million players, we want to talk, and we don't want to at all say like we don't want to play. We want to be invested. We want to be involved. We want to be going in on our raids and defending the darkness and fighting for the light. But if we are not creating that player generated input by having influencers coming in more on their feedback, or having other sort of like beta grabs, or other sort of like unique community grabs, you're not going to be able to create that market demand that the customers are really going to have any value out of. And so those are my solutions: is creating future expansions to include Web3 exchangeable content and investing in the AI unique scenarios. So therefore, you're creating unique scenarios based on player activity and player input. Now, that incorporates my second point, because the fact that you are having player generated input, you're having open source content right at your fingertips, so you don't even have to worry about trying to create more content. All you have to do is steer the ship. So that is what I believe Bungie needs to do to start creating more market demand to its customer value.